Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. On Digital Corp, IONI just filed an information statement regarding shareholder action by written consent, and I am seeing a plan that is quite aggressive with its share reserves. Quick note, this is not financial advice, just my take on public filings for educational purposes. This filing details a new equity incentive plan, and while it aims to attract and retain talent, the sheer number of shares set aside raises some serious questions about dilution. So, what exactly is happening here? On Digital Corp is sending out an information statement to its shareholders. This is not a request for a proxy, meaning they are not asking for your vote. They are simply informing you about a decision that has already been made. It is all happening through something called a written consent from a major shareholder, who holds enough voting power to approve things without a full shareholder meeting. The big action being taken is the adoption of the Digital Corp 2026 Equity Incentive Plan, also known as the 2026 Plan. Think of this as a program to give employees, directors, and consultants stock options and other stock-based rewards. This is a pretty standard practice for companies looking to keep their valuable people motivated, but as we'll see, the scale here is what is notable. This plan was approved by the company's board of directors and the majority shareholder on the 8th of June 2026. The key takeaway is that this action is not being put to a general shareholder vote because the necessary approvals have already been secured by consent. The corporate action will only be enacted after this information statement has been mailed out. And there is a waiting period of 20 calendar days. Now, let's dive into the details of this 2026 plan. The main goal is to attract and retain the best people, give them extra motivation, and hopefully drive the company's success. The plan allows for various types of awards like stock options, which give the holder the right to buy stock at a set price, and restricted stock units, which are promises to give stock in the future. Here is where things get interesting. Initially, the plan sets aside a share reserve of 38 million shares of the company's common stock. This might sound like a lot, but it gets more significant. This reserve will automatically increase every year on the 1st of January for the next 10 years. The increase will be 4% of the total number of outstanding shares of the company's capital stock as of the 31st of December of the previous year. This automatic escalator clause means the share pool can grow quite substantially over time, potentially leading to significant dilution for existing shareholders if the company's stock price doesn't grow accordingly. The plan will be managed by the board of directors. They have a lot of power here, including deciding who gets awards when they are granted, what kind of awards they are, and the specific terms. They can also suspend or terminate the plan if they deem it necessary. The fair market value used for these awards will generally be based on the closing stock price on the date of determination, or a good faith estimate if the stock isn't actively traded. Who can get these awards? Incentive stock options, which have favorable tax treatment, can only go to employees. Other stock awards can go to employees, directors, and consultants. However, there are special rules for 10% stockholders, who would need a higher exercise price for their options. Options and stock appreciation rights, or SARs, will have terms set by the board, and SAR gives the holder the right to receive the increase in value of a stock rather than the stock itself. The exercise price for options and SARs will be at least the fair market value at the time of the award. Options generally cannot be exercised more than 10 years after they're granted. Restricted stock awards are shares that are given out but might have restrictions or need to be forfeited if certain conditions aren't met, like staying with the company for a specific period. They can be awarded for cash, services, or other legal consideration. Restricted stock unit awards are similar, but they represent a right to receive shares in the future, often after a vesting period. The board decides the terms, including when they vest and how they are settled, whether in stock, cash, or a mix. The plan also allows for other stock awards, which are basically anything else valued based on the company's stock. The board has broad authority to set the terms for these. Generally, awards cannot be sold or transferred except by will or inheritance. The board can allow for exceptions like to a spouse in a divorce settlement, but the core idea is that these are personal incentives. In the event of stock splits, stock dividends, or other corporate changes like mergers, the board has the power to adjust the number of shares and the terms of outstanding awards to protect the value for award holders. If the company decides to dissolve, most outstanding stock awards will terminate. However, the board can, at its discretion, make these awards fully vested before the dissolution is completed. This section deals with what happens if the company is bought out or undergoes a major change in control. The board has several options, such as having the acquiring company assume the awards, accelerating their vesting, or even cancelling them in exchange for cash. If an employee leaves the company, has their employment terminated, or dies, there are specific rules about when they can exercise their options or SARs. Usually, there is a limited window after termination to exercise vested options, which can be 3 months, 12 months for disability, or up to 18 months in case of death, but always before the award's original expiration date. All awards under this plan are subject to clawback provisions. This means if the company has a clawback policy due to stock exchange rules, laws like the Dodd-Frank Act, or even its own policies, any previously earned awards could be recovered. This is becoming increasingly common and is designed to prevent executives from benefiting from misconduct. The board can suspend or terminate the plan at any time. However, they generally need shareholder approval for amendments that significantly increase the number of shares, expand eligibility, increase benefits, reduce the purchase price, extend the term, or expand the types of awards. Importantly, they can't materially impair a participant's existing award rights without their written consent, with some exceptions for legal compliance. Now let's look at who owns what. The table shows stock ownership as of the 8th of June 2026, focusing on officers, directors, and major shareholders. Carlos X. Montoya, the chairman and an executive officer, holds a significant amount of common stock, Series of Preferred Stock, and Series C Preferred Stock. His beneficial ownership percentage is quite high, especially when considering the conversion of his preferred stock into common stock. As a group, the executive officers and directors collectively hold a substantial percentage of the company's voting stock, which is a common feature in many companies where leadership has a significant stake. Among the principal stockholders, Orbit's Acquisition Group and I, on Digital Acquisition Corp, are listed. Orbit's has a notable holding of common and Series C preferred stock. I, on Digital Acquisition Corp, also holds a significant amount of common and Series of preferred stock. It is important to note how preferred stock can convert into common stock, affecting voting power and ownership percentages for these larger holders. This section confirms that no officers or directors have any substantial interests in the matters being acted upon beyond their normal roles, and none of the directors oppose the actions taken. This is pretty standard boilerplate. Here, the company informs shareholders where they can find more official information about the company, like their regular reports filed with the US Securities and Exchange Commission or the CAs. This section addresses householding, a common practice where companies send only one copy of documents like this to households, sharing an address to save on printing and mailing costs, unless a shareholder specifically requests otherwise. This is the start of the appendix, which contains the full text of the 2026 Equity Incentive Plan. We've already covered the main points of the plan here, including its purpose, the types of awards, and who is eligible. This details how the plan will be administered, primarily by the board of directors and their broad powers in managing the plan. This reiterates the 38 million share initial reserve and the annual 4% increase. It is worth emphasizing this automatic annual increase again, as it is a key feature that can lead to significant future dilution for existing shareholders if the stock price doesn't keep pace. Here it clarifies eligibility for different types of awards, with incentive stock options restricted to employees to maintain their tax benefits. This section goes deeper into the details of options and SARs, including their terms, exercise prices, and payment methods. This covers restricted stock awards, restricted stock unit awards, and performance awards, detailing their conditions and how they work. The company commits to making sure enough shares are available and to complying with securities laws related to the plan. This section covers various other details like the source of shares, what happens if there are clerical errors in award documents, and that participants don't have shareholder rights until shares are actually issued. This repeats the information about adjustments to awards in case of stock splits, consolidations, or other corporate events to protect award holders. This confirms that the plan has a term and it can be suspended or terminated by the board. No incentive stock options can be granted after 10 years from the plan's adoption date or shareholder approval date. The plan comes into effect when adopted by the board, but awards can't be exercised or granted until the plan is approved by shareholders, which must happen within 12 months. Delaware law will govern the plan. This is common for many companies incorporated in Delaware. Finally, this is a list of definitions for all the key terms used throughout the plan. This is where you'd find detailed explanations of things like affiliate cause, change in control, and fair market value. So, what is the story here? on Digital Corp is implementing a new equity incentive plan. While this is normal, the automatic yearly increase in the share reserve is a major point to watch. If the company is not able to significantly increase its valuation and earnings, this could lead to substantial dilution for existing shareholders. For a company with a relatively small market cap, like on Digital Corp, a 38 million share reserve, plus automatic annual increases is quite a large pool compared to its current outstanding shares. Historically, companies with such aggressive equity plans, especially in the microcap space, have sometimes struggled with long-term shareholder value if the stock price doesn't perform. For example, a company like Sears went through multiple rounds of stock splits and equity issuances that over time significantly reduced the value for original shareholders. While on Digital Corp is in a different sector, the principle of overissuance of stock can be a drag on share price performance. The company has also mentioned recent expansion of gold claims and securing gold reserves for tokenization, which suggests a strategy that may rely heavily on external capital or equity financing down the line. This equity plan could be a way to bring in talent for those ventures. But the size of the reserve is definitely a key factor to monitor. That is my take. Stay decoded. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives.